Namaste. My name is JVN Manisha Singh, Assistant Professor in Department of Food and Biotechnology under Faculty of Agriculture and Veterinary Sciences. I am teaching you subject Food Safety and Quality Control for Class B, DET FBT 6th semester. In this session, today we will discuss all about the shelf life and how do you calculate the shelf life of the food product. So, in our previous session, I will discuss all about the what is shelf life and what are the factors influencing the shelf life of the food product. So, let's begin with the topic. How do you calculate the shelf life? Okay. So, first of all, a question arises in your mind: what is a shelf life study? Okay. So, a shelf life is an objective, methodical means to determine a long a food product can reasonably be expected to keep for without any appreciable change in the quality, and a separate study needs to be carried out for each type of the product. So there are the two main methods used for this. Number one is the direct method, and this is one of the most commonly used method, and it is involves basically the storing the product under pre-selected conditions for a period of time longer than the expected shelf life and checking the product at regular intervals to see when it begins to spoil. And the exact procedure is unique for each product. And details of the steps required and types of decisions to be made are discussed in the below section. Okay. So next is the indirect method. This approach was accelerated storage and or predictive microbiological modeling to determine a shelf life. Okay. So steps involved in calculating shelf life by the direct method is before product on market. Basically, you have to identify what may cause the food to spoil or become unsafe. And you have to decide which tests to use and plan the shelf life study and determine the shelf life of the product. Once product on market, continue to monitor the shelf life of the food product. Okay. So, step-by-step determination of shelf life by the direct method. There are a number of decisions that need to be made during the study where it may be necessary to seek expert advice, identify what may cause the food to spoil or become unsafe. Each product will have its own set of factors that may limit its shelf life, and use the following list as a starting point to help identify all the possible ways that the product may deteriorate in quality and or safety. At the same time, identify the factors that help prolong the shelf life, and do not forget to consider the entire process. For the purchase of ingredients and packaging material right through to end use of the by the consumer, you may also need to consider the time of year, as some products will deteriorate faster in summer than in winter due to higher temperature. So product related spoilage is like raw materials. The quality, consistency, level of contamination and storage of raw materials will all affect the final product. Product makeup, which ingredients you use and how they behave when combined influences what type of and how many spoilage organisms can grow. Any changes to the proportions of ingredients or the ingredients themselves may affect the shelf life. Then water activity. This is the amount of water in a food that is available to be used by microorganisms. Microorganisms need water to grow. Water activity can be reduced by the addition of salt, sugar, and some other ingredients. Okay, jam is a moist food, but the large amount of sugars it contains mean only a small amount of this water can be used by the microorganisms. pH is a measure of acidity or alkalinity, and the pH will influence which microorganism will survive and grow in a food. For example, fresh mussels have a very short shelf life, whereas the mussels in vinegar, that is acidic marinades, have much longer shelf lives at the acidic environment, which limits most microbial growth. Then oxygen availability. by removing air from around the food or using vacuum packaging or modified atmosphere packaging, the food shelf life may be extended. Okay. However, some microorganisms can grow in the environments without oxygen to production processes and need to control these microorganisms as well. So high standards of hygiene are still important as these packaging methods only limit the growth of spoilage organisms that need oxygen, and they do not kill them or limit the growth of microorganisms that grow in the absence of the oxygen. For example, by the bacteria that cause Lyme, botulism, or listeriosis. Next is the chemical preservatives. When used correctly, preservatives help to control the growth of the microorganisms. Some have more than one role. For example, sulfites slow spoilage and also present browning in the dried fruits. And the types and amounts of preservative that can be used are detailed in the Australia New Zealand Food Standards Code. Okay. Next is the process related spoilage. Process include anything from mixing, salting, smoking, fermentation, heating and cooling, and chilling to dehydration, freezing and heat sterilization. The choice of process can alter the shelf life of the final product. For example, UHT milk is sterilized product and has a longer shelf life than pasteurized milk as the heat treatment is much greater. And to achieve a consistent product with the same appearance, flavor, shelf life, etc., it is important that the ingredient quality and the processing steps are always be same. A written recipe or flowchart that give exact details of what needs to be done at each step, particularly time temperatures, will ensure this. And you cannot apply someone else's shelf life without knowing that the all steps in their process. For example, in growing, manufacture, distribution, and sales are the same as your own. Okay, so minor variations in the time or temperature can result in a failure to destroy spoilage and food poisoning organisms. Then packaging. Packaging must protect the product from contamination during all subsequent steps including the distribution, sale, domestic storage. And packaging can also be a source of contamination. And if it is not produced and stored hygienically, then storage, temperature of storage is important as it slows down the growth of the microorganisms that are important to food safety and quality. Other factors to consider are humidity, light, physical handling, placement near other products that could taint the food, and protection from rodents, birds, and insects. And use temperature data loggers to ensure the correct controls are maintained as fluctuating temperatures can affect the shelf life of the perishable products. Okay, which tests we need to use? This is the step 2, and you need to select suitable test for determining the safety and quality of the product. And all tests are not appropriate for all the products. For example, you may test raw meats for number of lactic acid bacteria, but you wouldn't test fermented raw meats for these organisms. It may also important to test for the food organism, poisoning organisms such as listeria in order to verify product safety. If laboratory tests are needed, check the laboratory is accredited for those tests. If a laboratory is carrying out storage trials on your behalf, you need to see the records of the storage temperature stability. In general, tests can be divided into the following 4 categories. Number 1 is a sensory evaluation. Sensory evaluation assesses a food smell, appearance, flavor, and texture, and it can be used to monitor and record obvious changes that occur over time and is therefore useful when determining the shelf life of a food. The food should be assessed under the conditions at which it is designed to be stored and consumed. Ideally, this should be done by trained panel using recognized evaluation methods. Always check the food is safe to eat before using a taste panel. Okay, so if possible, without destroying the texture or other properties of the food, freeze samples at the beginning of the study, and these can then be used as a comparison at each testing session. If the food cannot be frozen, use a freshly prepared sample as a comparison. Okay. Next is the microbiological. testing. These tests can be used to evaluate the both quality and safety, and test may be done to estimate the changes in the number and types of spoilage organism like yeast, molds, and bacteria occurring over time. And if a specific food is included, use your judgment to determine where it would be fit. Identification of food poisoning organism present in food important for food safety. Tests required will depend on a particular product, and microbiological standards and guidelines give guidance on the types of organisms and their number that can be considered acceptable or unsafe in a food. Okay. So third is the chemical. Chemical test can detect changes in the product quality throughout its shelf life. Examples of instrumental chemical tests include the pH, headspace gas analysis, free fatty acids, and total volatile nitrogen. Then fourth parameter is the physical, and these include the test for measuring product texture, examination of packaging, travel test, and determining the best, worst, and average retail conditions. A travel test helps in identify any hazards involved in transport and handling. It involves transporting the product through the expected distribution and storage chain. An examination of the product at various points and at the end of the chain is required. A data logger may be used to record the temperature at preset times for later analysis. Experimental design should be attempt to mimic real life practices, for example, including the predicted transport temperatures to retail outlets during commercial control and consumer purchase and transport and consumer storage. Okay, then step 3 is plan the shelf life study. Consider the following points when preparing your detailed shelf life study plan. So, what test needs to be carried out? Second is how long will the study run for and how often will tests be carried out, including the actual sampling data in your dates in your plan. It is suggested that the sampling be carried out at the beginning, at the target endpoint, and at the about 3 occasions in between. Another sampling should be carried out beyond the target to confirm the endpoint selection. And how many samples will be tested each time? At least triplicate packs of products should be tested at each sampling. And how many samples will be needed for the whole study period? When will the study be run? Ideally, it should be carried out in the season most likely to cause problem, usually summer. The study should be carried out more than once to take account of variability of the product. The product process and packaging should be same as you intend to use for the final product. Keep written records of everything you use or do, as these can helpful when interpreting the results. Now the study is fully planned and timetabled. Step 4 is run the shelf life study. During the study, samples should be stored under the same conditions as your normal production samples for manufacture through the consumption. And if this is not possible, the sample should be stored at a known temperature and humidity. These need to be checked and recorded regularly. At the time set out in step 2, samples are selected and tested as per the test decided in the step 1, and do not forget to record the test result and anything else you think also may be useful later. Step 5 is determine the shelf life. Eventually, a point is reached when the product is no longer meets the quality standard. Using all the information you have recorded and observed, how long the product can be kept and still be of an acceptable quality and safety. Maximum storage times for quality and safety may not be the same. The shelf life of a product should be whichever is shortest. Look at the test results, and if any of them don't make sense, repeat them. If the results still don't make sense or are variable, check the ingredients. Their quality and processing are the same for all the batches. Determine what is the causing the variability. Then repeat the sampling and test. Now you have an estimated shelf life that is based on the ideal storage conditions. So you need to make allowance for the real world, where storage conditions may be variable and product abuse can occur. The shelf life you select for your product should be reasonable, not ideal, and you should allow a safety margin. and you can limit the possibility of the product abuse to some extent by specifying the storage condition for the product and limiting its distribution. Okay, now you have to calculate the working shelf life. Step 6 is monitoring the shelf life. Sample should be tested for the factors that the shelf life study indicated were the most important for that product, for example, acidity, loss of flavor, level of spoilage organisms, etc. And sample could also be taken for various points within the distribution and the retail system. If this testing shows that the preliminary shelf life is inappropriate, it should be adjusted. And it is also critical that the shelf life study is repeated after any changes have been made in the production or the processing environment. A longer shelf life may be developed by identifying the limiting factors in the shelf life study, modifying them, and repeating the study. Okay, investigating customer complaints relating to the product failure before the expiry date may help to identify a recurring problem and indicate a need to recalculate the shelf life. Okay, so the records you made while designing and carrying out the shelf life test will assist you in the evaluation of customer complaints, troubleshooting, production and distribution problems, and in reviewing the shelf life of the product. It is important that all the test results are written down and then that these records can kept in a safe but accessible place. Okay, so continue to monitor the product to ensure it is safe and good quality throughout the whole shelf life. Now, what are the indirect methods of determining the shelf life? So indirect methods attempt to predict the shelf life of a product without running a full-length storage trial. Hence, they can be useful for products with long shelf lives. The two most common indirect methods are accelerated shelf life studies, and the trial period is shortened by deliberately increasing the rate of deterioration, and it is usually done by increasing the storage temperature, and the results are then used to estimate the shelf life under normal storage conditions. Then predictive modeling. Predictive models are mathematical equations which use information from a database to predict bacterial growth under defined conditions, and predictive models can be used to calculate the shelf life of a food. Information on the changes that occur in the product when it is deteriorates the properties of the product, and the packaging is required for the calculations. Most predictive models are specific to particular type of organisms as well. And some examples of predictive modeling systems are the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA pathogen modeling program. Okay. Models are useful as a first step in the evaluation of product shelf life. However, information from modeling programs needs to be verified by the challenge testing or a shelf life trial. Okay. So from this session, various questions may be asked in your final exams. So like what is the shelf life? How do you calculate the shelf life? How many ways are there to calculate the shelf life? So likewise, questions will be asked in your final exam. So prepare accordingly. And that is enough for today's session. Thank you so much.